All right, we're going to be looking at what happened on Friday, June 5th here in the markets. So, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, all of the markets were down pretty good here, especially MNQ here or NQ, which tracks the Nasdaq futures, was down closed down 4.79% here on last Friday. But here on the daily chart, okay, so we have this yellow or this blue line is the beginning of the year. We had a move to the downside, which was 23,000. We had a move from 31st of March, so beginning of April, all the way to beginning of June, first week of June, and then we had a major sell-off, right? So this was the box, the little trading range that I created previously, but as you see here on Friday, we actually bounced off of that 20,770 area. So what does this mean? So historically speaking, the NASDAQ has, when it has had a 5% plus down in one day, it's had multiple either weeks or months of volatility. So we might be entering into a time where volatility is heightened, bigger swings, whether that's in futures, stocks, crypto, whatever it is. I think right now we're in a very volatile market, especially since we had a almost 5% move to the downside in the tech sector here. I mean, people can speculate and say, oh, people are getting out of, let's say crypto or stocks because of this SpaceX IPO. They can say jobs were hotter than expected, so the interest rates might be raised. The Fed might raise rates here in December. There's an 82% chance of the Fed raising rates. So there's a lot of speculation on what actually happened on Friday. But if you are a trader, especially intraday trader or a day trader, you are going to just determine your entry levels at certain levels, right? Certain levels. So like Friday, which was yesterday, the market ended at 29,026. They made a low of 28,778. This low here was 28,663. This low here was 28,741. So if we extend this even a little bit, I don't think I can. It's locked. But if we extend that to here, this bottom portion here, it'll match bouncing off of that area, right? So when we are looking for a bounce from the market, we're looking at a certain level. So after we had this nice move up, we actually had a pullback on the 15th of May for 2 days until the 19th of May here, and then we made a second leg to the upside. So what I'm expecting for Monday is maybe something people call a dead cat bounce, right? So a dead cat comes, it falls off, say, a roof or something, it bounces up, and then it goes back for another second leg to the downside. And here on the daily, if we do have a bounce, so we have, say, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this next week coming back up, probably that 29,000, almost 800 level should be a level that we're looking at here on the MNQ. And then once we bounce there up to there, we're going to come back down. What is that creating also a pattern of? At a head and shoulders, if we have that move back up to 29,800. So that's something that we got to really look at when it comes to this next week, especially with the SpaceX IPO. I think there's going to be a lot of liquidity going out and into the markets, and there's just a lot of hype still, I think, in chip and AI companies, and especially with the IPO, SpaceX IPO coming this Friday. So let's take a quick look at Friday's price action here. So we opened the morning, bounced and rejected high of 30,100, and we sort of bounced off of that top of that 29,800 here. Once we lost that level, we just kept going to the downside. I didn't start trading until about 1 o'clock, and I was in puts, QQQ puts. So I made around 130% on the small account. And I am actually long, obviously, on the long portfolio and the swing portfolio. I am long. One company that I am going to mention at the end of this video that we might see a big move to the upside on Monday. But yeah, we just had a huge move to the downside, almost 5%, like I said. One thing that I did do at the end of Friday, I did buy 2 QQQ contracts, their options, call options, and we bought around, or strike price of 710. So 710 was a nice resistance point there. We actually saw a little bit of a move up, and then we slowly slowed down back to 700. So I'm looking to see if we get a move from on Monday from this dead cat bounce, hopefully. And then if I do lose those 2 contracts, that's completely fine, because I'm only risking about 25% of the gains that I've had since I had that $130 or 130% gain on Friday. So I'm only risking about 25% of that portfolio, but I'll get out obviously earlier if I need to. If QQQ breaks below 700 and is making lower lows, then I'll just get out of those call options there. But what I am expecting is a move to the upside here on Monday. So one thing that I do want to talk about is, or one company that I've been trading and keeping my eye on, and I do actually have a long on, is Marvell. So Marvell, was down 16.74%. So I'm not sure if it's going to be short sale restricted here on Monday, SSR, since it's been down. It was down more than 10%. But Marvell, there was an announcement stating that Marvell is going to be put into the S&P 500 starting June 22nd, and that's why we see this big volume candle here and this big spike up to the upside. So the low of that candle was 253, and it made a high of 278, right? So a $20 move here in a 5-minute candle, and then it made a move all the way up to 283, which is pretty nice. It closed after hours at 272, which is really good. Pretty strong close for a company that was down pretty decent there. So what I'm looking at on Marvell is for a move back up to 300. If we can reclaim 300, I can see us moving back up to 310, 318, and so on and so forth. As long as we get some good momentum in the actual tech market, or the QQQs, or the MNQ or NQ or NASDAQ. So that is what I'm looking for on Monday. Like I said, I have 2 call options on QQQ. Strike price is 710, so it's about a 1% move from 700. So 1% move up, which is very doable. And after having a 5% drop down, we can see a 1 or 2% move to the upside. So I'm thinking I'm going to be correct. I might have to wait a little bit, but hopefully Sunday, which is tomorrow, Sunday morning or Sunday evening at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, future markets do open, and I hope and I'm praying that they open very green. I know there was some news on X stating that Donald Trump was actually going to be talking to a bunch of AI CEOs and stating that the U.S. government is going to be taking equity in U.S. AI companies, that he will be hosting a meeting with AI executives as soon as this coming week, and that's per Reuters there. So that's actually really good news for the tech sector and AI stocks. And Marvell is not so much an AI play, but it does help with the infrastructure of AI, all those data centers. Marvell does supply chips to those AI data centers. So that's what I'm looking for on Monday. I will be looking at futures tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening, sorry, and seeing what they are doing. But I'm looking for a dead cat bounce here. We might have, like I said, extreme volatility here in the next couple of weeks, and even more downside once we hit that 29,800 level is a level that I'm looking for here on the NASDAQ to see if we can go short or go in puts. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. Make sure you're doing your technical analysis and some studying this weekend, and be ready for Monday, because I can pretty sure it's going to be a wild ride here the next couple of weeks. So good luck on Monday, and we'll see you in the next video.